Hello and welcome to Recyclist. I'm your host, Eric Provost, and today I'm being joined by two very special guests, the Chief Operating Officer and the Biogas Systems Director of Diamond Scientific, Teresa Espy and Shane Mars. Thank you guys so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Hey, Eric. Thank you for having us. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Good to see you guys. Shane, you and I don't see each other nearly enough in person.
No, that's right. I am so privileged to reside in the Great White North, and it is, again, a privilege to join you, for that matter, here in the warm, sunny state of Florida.
But you guys are, like I just said, the Chief Operating Officer and the Biogas Systems Director. Shane, starting with you, what does being the Biogas Systems Director for Diamond Scientific actually mean?
So primarily, I focus on assisting our clients with building out solutions for their production facilities of renewable natural gases, anaerobic digestion systems, large dairy corporations, CAFOs.
Closed animal feed operations, yeah.
Closed animal feed operations, wastewater treatment plants, anywhere where gas production is in place. There is usually the need for a solution to read that gas. So my particular role is in that of biogas. I focus in on the production facilities that deal with solid waste.
And what about you, Teresa? What do you do for the company?
As the COO, my main job is really to assist the CEO, Ramon Rivera, in running the company. I also assist in bringing in a more scientific understanding of the technology solutions that we offer. And being a small business, all of us actually wear many hats, and I'm helping run the company, whether it be maybe in a human resource role, maybe a little bit of accounting, that sort of thing.
And I want to get into the background for both of you, and especially you, Teresa. We were actually just recently having a very interesting conversation about something that you used to do that involved like decommissioned nuclear rods for submarines. So, I mean, if anybody has any questions about your qualifications, I think they just need to hear about this. I know I certainly want to hear this again.
Well, originally after college, many years ago, I started out as a chemical technician in the research department of a paper mill company, documenting data of pine seedlings that were studied to improve the quality of paper. And from there, I worked as a chemical analyst at an analytical chemistry lab associated with a government facility that stripped uranium from spent nuclear fuel rods that came from Navy submarine. After that, I spent several years at Sandia National Laboratories as a senior chemical tech, working on a project developing a sensor to detect organic contaminants in air and water using surface acoustic wave on piezoelectric ceramics. And from there, I spent a year at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station as a quality control tech, checking that the fuel lines for the Delta IV rocket launch pad met cleaning and pressure requirements. And after that, I spent a few years working as a project coordinator with a group of marine biologists sending protected species observers to monitor for whales during seafaring projects that could potentially be dangerous to whales. And from there...
So what you're saying is you've never really done anything within the scientific field. That's what we're getting from you.
No, really. No, and then I when I was working with the marine biologists, I missed the chemistry. So I learned that
literally, or with your comrades?
Well, no, with the when I was for several years I was with the marine biology group, and that's a very different kind of animal. I mean,
yeah.
In working there, and I started to get bored, and I missed, like I said, the chemistry of my background. And then I learned that Diamond Scientific was looking for another person to add on to their business to help it. And when I learned that it had to they were using instruments, like for gas monitoring and et cetera, I thought, oh, maybe I can, use my my old skills there. So I applied, and we hit it off, and I've been here ever since.
Nice. No residual radiation from your time with the decommissioned nuclear rods, I hope?
As far as I know, no. So far, so good.
That's still amazing to me. Like, that was actually uranium, right?
Correct.
That's
Yes.
nuts to me. That's so cool. But in terms of a scientific background and, obviously all the stuff that Diamond Scientific is into with renewable natural gas and the scientific community, I think it's safe to say they've got a fairly well-rounded expert on their hands at COO. Now, Shane, I want to hear a little bit about your background as well.
Sure. I did not work on nuclear submarines, but I do have a background.
We'll get you there.
I do have a background in the sciences. Now, I was pretty green to the field when I came into it. I was very fortunate that Ray saw potential in me, for that matter. My specialty, my primary focus in my secondary education was biology. I got my degree in biology with a focus on conservation of natural resources. And ever since then, I wanted to find opportunities to progress that, for that matter, progress my understanding of conservation, where it's going, how can I be involved. Of course, animals were a reason that I pursued such a field. I have a lot of passion for animals and nature, for that matter, the wildlife that's around us, and I find that even though we're in gas analysis primarily, we still do deal with animals and microorganisms, all kinds of things that are affected and influenced by these gas streams, the waste streams that we all deal with, and so for that matter, it feels it's very nice to. It's a pride point to be involved and have your finger on the pulse of where the renewable energy industry is going in this day and age.
So what do you think, just to kind of piggyback directly into my next question, because one of the things I wanted to ask you about was, having so much experience in this industry now, what do you think are some of the most interesting aspects of what you do from a scientific standpoint?
I definitely find, when people ask, what do you do? Or it comes up in conversation with peers or friends or strangers alike. Nobody outside of our industry really seems to consider what happens to waste after it gets thrown away. Same with wastewater.
Are you telling me it just doesn't magically appear from your trash bin once you put it on the curb?
No, that's correct. And more so, a lot of people don't realize that there's city vehicles, UPS vehicles. There's all kinds of infrastructure that already utilizes and has been for some time this renewable fuel from solid waste remediation. And again, that's something people are always really interested to find out about. I didn't, I always heard that, cow farts were potent or whatever, volatile, but, nobody really considers how it's already been applied and how long, for that matter.
Teresa, what about you?
My interest lies especially in the science, in the technology of how we go about trying to solve the problems that the industry has. If they have to meet EPA requirements, that sort of thing, a client will come up, they're trying to solve a problem, and that's the best part for me, is going into the weeds and figuring out what would be the best source for them to help them solve that problem.
Can you give us an example?
A client comes up and wants to monitor for certain contaminants in the air, and they're not sure what kind of instrument to use. And so I'll ask them, prod them, are you looking for, maybe it's a volatile organic compound? Are you looking for particulate matter in the air? Maybe certain inorganic compounds that are in the air. And then I can narrow it down to the instrument that would help them. And sometimes they'll come up with, like, an instrument that is typically used out in the field on dry land, and they'll want to be able to use it potentially like on a buoy out in a bay somewhere, or put it on a drone. And then it's fun to talk with the manufacturer to come up with maybe a solution that would work for that client.
What about you, Shane? Do you have any examples of some of the stuff that you were talking about?
Yeah, so one really interesting thing, I love the novel applications. When we get a request that's something outside of the norm, new age stuff, again, like keeping the finger on the pulse of where we're going, what could be done here, how could we improve this, make more efficient. But for example, again, I mentioned earlier, I am living currently in Michigan, and it turns out in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, there's this ridge that descends through the country, through the Midwest, and below that ridge apparently is a lot of geological hydrogen beneath the ground. So when these researchers reached out to me in this regard, I was very intrigued and curious to see how our analyzers would function for them in that regard. And again, further along those lines, any kind of novel application is really something that helps push this along, this industry, as far as seeing what works, seeing how it can be more efficient. Even people at home could use analyzers and see how much production of natural gas they might be making from their own waste.
Yeah, a lot of great points, Shane. Thank you. And I'm really looking forward to continuing this conversation with Shane Mars and Teresa Espy in part 2 of my interview in the next episode of Recyclist. But we are going to step away for now. But do me a favor, make sure to check out the sponsor of Recyclist, Diamond Scientific. You can check them out online at diamondsci.com. That's diamondsci.com. Or you can even set up a personalized presentation by calling 321-223-7500. My name is Eric Provost, and we will see you back here next week for part 2 of this interview in a brand new episode of Recyclist. Thank you.